Well, good morning. I'm Mark Addison. I'm a member of Christ Central Church, and I'll be leading the morning devotional this morning. This morning, I'm going to be reading from Mark 14, verses 1 to 11, and I'm going to be reading the New Living Translation. It was now 2 days before Passover and the festival of unleavened bread. The leading priests and the teachers of religious law were still looking for an opportunity to capture Jesus secretly and kill him. But not during the Passover celebration, they agreed, or the people may riot. Meanwhile, Jesus was in Bethany at the home of Simon, a man who had previously had leprosy. While he was eating, a woman came in with a beautiful alabaster jar of expensive perfume made from essence of nard. She broke open the jar and poured the perfume over his head. Some of those at the table were indignant. Why waste such expensive perfume, they asked. It could have been sold for a year's wages and the money given to the poor. So they scolded her harshly. But Jesus replied, "Leave her alone. Why criticize her for doing such a good thing to me? You will always have the poor among you, and you can help them whenever you want, but you will not always have me. She has done what she could and anointed my body for burial ahead of time. I tell you the truth, whenever the good news is preached throughout the world, this woman's deed will be remembered and discussed." Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples, went to the leading priest to arrange to betray Jesus to help to them. They were delighted when they heard why he had come, and they promised to give him money. So he began looking for an opportunity to betray Jesus. So here we have a situation where the chief priests and scribes are plotting to murder Jesus. It seems that the religious leaders' original intent to seize Jesus during the festival. When they saw the popularity of Jesus at his triumphal entry and his authority on the Temple Mount, they changed their mind and decided to do it after the feast. So you'll remember they said, but not during the Passover celebration. They agreed, or the people may riot. So these religious leaders were not afraid to murder the Son of God. They just believed that they had to do it in a politically smart way. In considering this action, they showed that they did not fear God, but they did fear the people. So that's quite interesting in terms of where they positioned themselves. So if we look back into Exodus, the Passover commemorates the angel of death passing over the homes of the Israelites and killing the Egyptian firstborn. And the Feast of the Unleavened Bread commemorates the departure of the Israelites from Egypt soon after, with God providing sustenance for his people. Obviously, as these events occurred very closely together, it was usual for Hebrews to travel and gather in Jerusalem to celebrate both of these events. This would be part of some sort of annual pilgrimage into Jerusalem. Note, Jesus is not only the sacrificial Passover lamb, but he also called himself the bread of life. He was without sin, unleavened. That he was born in Bethlehem, a name meaning house of bread, is in a sense a verification of this. So let's consider the extraordinary events that occurred during the meal at the home of Simon. Now, he's referred to as a man who previously had leprosy, and although it doesn't state so in the passage, I'm assuming that he was probably healed by Jesus, and that's probably the connection that Jesus had with him and why he'd been invited into this guy's house. It was customary at that time when guests arrived for a meal to anoint a guest's head with a dab of oil. Here, this woman went much further than the customary greeting. She poured an entire content of a beautiful alabaster flask of very costly perfume, that oil of nard, on the head of Jesus fact, these types of oils and perfumes were often used as investments because they were quite small and portable, and they could easily be sold. The fact that the container is ornate and very valuable probably means that this wasn't something that she would be carrying on her person. So this was an intentional act that she conducted. She'd obviously brought this with her for a specific reason. And obviously she wanted to honor Jesus with this really, really generous action. Now, the value of this, from doing some research, was equivalent to a person's annual income, which is roughly 300 denarii. So this was a really, really expensive possession, probably something that had been passed down through generations. So the disciples recognized the value of the oil and criticized her sharply. And each one was considering the pouring of this oil over Jesus' head as being wasted. However, Jesus intercedes for actions on the basis of doing something good to him. And if we look through the Bible, Jesus really loves people doing good things in his name and honoring him, and he honors them. Now, after the interchange, Judas makes an agreement with the religious leaders to betray Jesus. It's not clear whether he was upset over the events that had happened in the house, but he was motivated really by pure greed. And as we know, he goes on to receive a payment of 300 pieces of silver for betraying Jesus. So as a reflection, we could view the pouring of the oil over Jesus' head as the anointing of Jesus as the worthy king. We saw that he triumphantly entered Jerusalem and was welcomed by the people. And it's clear that many of the people recognized him as the coming Messiah, but the religious leaders didn't, probably because they were concerned about the loss of their authority and the loss of their power. And that's why they set about trying to seek ways to murder him, basically. So should we think of anything too precious for Jesus ourselves that we may give to him? Do we give him the precious anointments of our best efforts? I don't think there's very much more that I want to say, but maybe we could just think about the actions here of this woman who is obviously devoted to Jesus, and she goes ahead with this really generous action in recognizing Jesus. And for her, this generosity was really, a kind act to Jesus. And what are we doing for Jesus in this day and age? So I'm going to stop the recording at this point, and maybe we can discuss and pray.